Oh, I gotta give me breath back. I just ran up and down the stairs. That's me done for the day for my fitness.
Yeah, you
That's it.
need to work on your cardio.
Yep, definitely. Welcome, welcome. I'm Steve,
And I'm Kevin.
and we're nerds.
Well, yeah, I can't argue with that. Or is it
It's-
dork? What's the hang on? Are we nerds or dorks? What's the difference?
oh God, it's kind of like saying, "Oh, I'm a geek." You don't mind being a geek because you can be a cool geek, but when it comes to being a nerd, it's kind of like, oh, it's not
Oh, hang
really
on.
cool to be a nerd. But when it comes to being a dork, I think that's even worse.
No, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think nerd means you're into nerdy things, but if you're a dork, you're good at maths. Like you're
Ah,
good
right.
at you're intelligent. When nerds are just like into nerdy things. We're thick.
Isn't that the same as geek?
Yeah, geek. You're into geeky things.
Yeah, but you
You
can
could
be a
be a.
cool geek.
Can you be a dorky nerd? I don't
I don't know, probably. Yeah, if you
know.
start mixing them, maybe it doesn't sound as bad.
Answers on a postcard. What you think? What's the difference between a nerd and a dork?
We're going to talk about games today.
Woohoo! I like games.
Yay!
Hang
Yeah.
on though, Steve. Are you talking about Monopoly or something else?
No, 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 no. Let's not talk about board games. Let's talk about old computer games,
That's the best kind.
the best kind, yeah, because you get a bit nostalgic. And actually, I get a bit nostalgic. And like I'm on the mobile phone, and my son's like wants to play Pac-Man. So I find the best Pac-Man I can see on there, which doesn't have so many ads. It's unreal. And
Mm.
and and you play it and you think, oh yeah, I love Pac-Man, this is great. But when you actually compare when you actually compare the mobile version of Pac-Man, which is supposed to be the original Pac-Man, it literally isn't the original Pac-Man. The original Pac-Man is just blockiness, blocky squares, and then I think it must have been upgraded like in the
Yeah.
80s at some point. It's still early on to get, but it's still nowhere near the like the HD quality that we'll get now.
Yeah, I mean the blocky graphics are part of the charm, isn't it? But
Yeah,
I think the problem is what I find is that it's the nostalgia factor. The game was probably a complete pile of shit back, but we knew it back then. But because we're looking at it with like those, oh, I remember playing that. It seems better than what it really was.
yeah. And then you find the game on your mobile because somebody's remade it and it's better graphics and everything. You go, oh yeah, this was cool. This is yeah, I love it. But you actually, yeah, if you go back and play the original, you'd be like, yeah, this is rubbish.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with. I mean, I never had top range computers back in the day. My first computer was a TRS-80, which I doubt many people even know what that is. And then I upgraded to an Acorn Electron. Ooh.
Oh, so what was the first one? What was that? Is that who was that made by?
Radio Shack. Or I think no, it was a Tandy, Radio Shack Tandy, something like that.
Ah,
It was proper old school, black and white, 16K. And even when we got it, it was outdated when we got it. Actually, they used to refer its nickname was the Trash 80. They used to call it the Trash 80 because it was so rubbish. I played
even
hours on that. I played hours. They had some great text adventures on there. I used to love the text adventure games because the graphics were so rubbish. You bet you're off using your imagination.
yeah. Well, what's funny about that is I didn't play. I didn't even play a Spectrum. It was a Spectrum ZX my mate had, and
Mm.
I might have played a couple of games, but I didn't even see that until I was about 14 or something. So, which was really late, but he still had it, and we I was more interested in making our own games. So we would take, um, what you call choose your own adventure
Mm.
style book, and I had this great idea. I was like, oh, is it Steve Jackson?
And
Um,
Ian Livingstone, yeah, Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone.
yeah, so I think I had a couple of those books, and I was like, oh, I've got this great idea. We could replicate these books in game format, and we had this idea that we could make a text-based game, choose your own, path, and I think we must have got a quarter of the way through the book before we got really bored. but but that was the start of like, oh, this is cool. You can make your own game. That was awesome. Never,
Yeah, I
I
used to do that. I used to do the old. I didn't convert a choose your own adventure book, I used to use like arrays and things like that, and you'd have to design a grid. Terribly complicated stuff. Considering I was 12, that's quite advanced stuff. I don't want to
Well,
burst your bubble though, but they did already back in the 80s already start converting those game books to computer games,
yeah,
and on the
I'd love
Spectrum.
yeah. So yeah, everything we tried was pointless, but it was
Wait,
all good.
no, they stole your idea. You must have, I don't know, posted it on a pen pal written into a magazine, and you let it got published because
Uh,
they stole it
yeah.
that way.
This is at the same time of messing around with the Spectrum. We obviously we mate had a normal PC because everyone had started getting sort of normal computers at that point. And we used to go on at the time everyone was into like chat forums. And we'd go into a chat forum, and I don't know how we even got it right, but we had a little program, and you could chat to people, and you could be like, oh, I'll send you my picture. So you'd send them this file, and it looked like a JPEG, but when they opened it, it would install in their computer, and then you could control their computer.
Hang on. So you were hacking people's computers?
Basically, in the 90s, it was what 1996 or something it would have been, or 95. Yeah, probably 94, 95. Like I said, I don't know
Or
where you got this program from.
so hang on, let me just clarify then. So you were going on chat rooms and promising to send pictures of yourselves to people. So you were basically leading paedophiles on.
Yeah, and basically, and yeah, but this is how naive people were back then. If you sent them a file and said, "Oh, here's my picture," they would actually open it. And whereas, like, we might be a bit suspicious of all of this. You could probably still get those programs. I'm not really sure where from, but we sent a picture to someone. They were like, "Oh, it doesn't work. It's not opening." And we were like, like Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, we've got control.
Yeah. And we started controlling the person's mouse, and then we flipped the screen upside down. There was like a little control panel came up, and you could do all kinds of stuff.
Oh my
So,
God, you
and then
were a right little sod, wasn't you?
terrible, that, isn't it? But we thought it was
Yeah.
hilarious.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, it is quite funny. Some sweaty old man thinking he's going to get a picture of some naked young lads, and he's like, "What's going on?" You could have been talking to Gary Glitter.
Well, I'm pretty sure that once they switched the computer off and like restart it, that it would just go back to normal. And then once we lost connection, that was it. You couldn't just do it again. Like next time they switched the computer on, or maybe you could. We just didn't know how.
Ooh, that's
Or we were thinking that we might have actually permanently broken someone's computer.
yeah. How do you live with the guilt?
Yeah. Oh no, the screen is permanently upside down.
God, you're talking about the days of dial-up connections as well.
Yeah.
Bing, 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 bing. That horrible noise.
Yeah. Which is like even that sound is nostalgic now. People go, "Oh yeah, remember that?" Like it's on the Matrix. The sound of it is at the beginning of the Matrix, isn't it?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Oh, remember that?" They remember it fondly, but actually, at the time, you were like, "Oh my god,
Just connect already.
yeah, hurry up! Why do you have to make this stupid sound?"
Yeah. Is that? Are you on the internet again? I need to use the phone.
Yeah. Actually, the cassettes that you put in the Spectrum, they made that sound as well
They did
because you
actually.
would load the game, wouldn't you, from the cassette?
They made that exact noise. Yeah. Oh God, I remember cassette loading games were just. It was very temperamental, and I remember particularly I had a Commodore 64 after the Acorn Electron, and you'd go load a game, walk away, and about 10 minutes later, you'd come back to see if it's loaded. It's either going to be press fire to begin, way happy days, or it's just crashed on the
Yeah.
loading screen. You're like, oh, for God's sake.
Or it chews the tape up, so so you'd
That's
never be able to
cool.
play it again.
Yeah. Well, then you're like, when you realise, though, talking about those old cassette tapes as well. I mean, I've got a few here still, but what always struck me as really funny, even like now, is the box art would be the most amazing. It would be a wizard with a staff held up and a dragon swooping down, fire breathing, and like,
Yeah.
whoa, this game looks awesome. game never lived up to the expectation that you had painted on the box.
Yeah.
I
So
think that
true,
was
isn't
part of the charm. The actual packaging of games back then was a real treat. I remember when I had a Commodore 64, if you had the budget games on cassette tapes and just a normal cassette box, but if you went and bought the $9.99 games, the Gucci ones that were new releases, they came in boxes, like
it? Yeah.
big cardboard boxes with manuals and things in them. It was like, oh, unpacking a treat. It was a proper like treat to open the box up and things. Like someone's giving you a box of chocolates.
Ah,
A treat to myself.
we are getting nostalgic now because I remember that with CDs. My first ever CD was Use Your Illusion 1 by Guns N' Roses. And when I was in junior school, my friend's brother used to listen to Guns N' Roses. And my mate used to sing the songs in class, right? So I knew Guns N' Roses songs before I'd listened to Guns N' Roses. And then he made me a tape with some Guns N' Roses songs on. And it had what I didn't realize was I thought it was Use Your Illusion 1, but it was actually a bit of a mix of Use Illusion 1, Use Illusion 2. And I think it had some Appetite for Destruction songs on there as well. So when I actually bought Use Illusion 1 and played it, I was like overwhelmed with joy because there was like these extra songs on, which I'd never heard
Oh,
before. I thought it was an awesome thing. But yeah, I'd take the little booklet out and I'd read all the lyrics.
can I just put a clarity on here? We do not condone piracy in any way.
Piracy.
Piracy,
Oh,
pleurisy? No, that's a lung condition.
piracy.
Piracy. Yeah, we don't agree with pleurisy. So anyone
Yeah.
who's had pleurisy, you just leave now. No,
Yeah.
piracy. Uh,
Although I did read that the people who used to do download torrents and movies and everything illegally, they are actually apparently the people who buy most of. They also buy the products as well, so they'll get them for free so they can watch them, and then they'll actually buy them as well. So there is a bit
you
of
know, I haven't got a clue what a torrent is, and I have no idea what any of that is. Honest.
I better just hide those like piles of CDs and those old computers that've got everything saved on them.
Yeah, we'll just cut this bit out.
Yeah, yeah, good idea.
Well, we used to do that with games. Well, I knew people that used to get cassette tape games, and you could just copy the cassette tape.
So you went from the Radio Shack thingy bob
Yeah.
to Commodore 64.
No, TRS 80 or the Trash
Ah,
80 to an
yeah.
Acorn Electron
Ah,
to a Commodore 64, and then I finally got an Amiga, right? And now this is like the so obviously we're talking in low numbers of memory here. So I had an
yeah,
Amiga 500 and it had 512 kilobytes, so half a meg.
yeah,
I was always behind everybody else on computers. So when I had an Acorn Electron, everyone had Spectrums and whatnot.
yeah.
So anyway, I'm really proud. I've got an Amiga 500 with half a meg on it, and then all my mates were getting like megabyte upgrades, so they all had like 1 megabyte Amigas. So they used to take the piss out of me and call me half meg Kev, half meg.
Yes.
It's annoying. Like if I'd had a megabyte, I could have been called the Meg back then, which would have been a bit of a cooler name than half meg. The
Half
Meg.
meg, Kev. I like
Yeah,
that.
half meg Kev. Oh,
Well,
you've only got 512 kilobytes, but we've got 1024 kilobytes. Ah, you're poor. Megabytes in my little finger now.
oh, you compare that to today, that's like minuscule.
I've got a little SD card that'll have like 64. Well, I've got 128 gigabyte SD card. That's the size of my fingernail.
The Amiga was the very first computer I ever experienced, as in gaming wise. And around the same time, because I was in primary school, one of my other friends had an Atari because I remember playing Dig Dug. But
Do you mean like a Atari ST?
um, no, not the it's the little black box with the silver stripe across. Not the brown thing that was. I think it was made of wood actually, wasn't it?
It had a walnut wood finish, yeah.
Yeah. It was just the style of the day.
Yeah.
But well, I remember going to my friend's house, and well, his big brothers had an Amiga, and I was like, "What is this?" And we played
Mm.
It came from the desert.
Oh, that was one of my favourite games.
Yeah,
B
yeah.
movie with the ants.
Oh, well, it was like on the desert, unchanged for millions of years, yet witness to a biblical prophecy come true
That
that
one
the
day
meek.
the
That's
meek
it.
will inherit the earth. Yeah, I
Yes.
still remember the whole intro.
Yeah, brilliant. And then I don't think I ever got past the beginning. Actually, there was a point where you had to escape from hospital.
The hospital chase is like, there he goes, stop him.
Yeah,
I could never get out of the hospital.
but
End
while
up being caught, thrown in your bed in hospital, and kept there for days, and days pass, and then you finally get waking up in your house.
yeah,
That was a good game though.
oh yeah, awesome. But then I discovered after that a game which I thought was the best ever, and I still think it's got to be me top one of my top games as well. It was Another World.
Oh yeah, that's the one where they use the stop motion one, where
Yeah,
you're on a computer and you get transported to an alien planet. Oh, it's
yeah.
really hard. That first level where
Uh,
you've got to jump over like the bug things or the
yeah,
falling rocks, and then a lion chases you or something.
yeah. I've got I think it might be the 30th anniversary game for PC. I think I might have the 15th anniversary as well. I just keep buying them
It's
every.
it's on the
Ah,
PS store as well because it's on
ah,
PlayStation. But
it's
that
such
game
a
was
good game.
frustrating. It was frustrating though.
Yeah.
I remember it wowed me for the graphics at the time,
Hmm.
but it was just frustrating gameplay. They did a sequel to it called Flashback, I think.
I was going to mention this because I tried to find out is Flashback. People ask the question: Is Flashback the sequel to
Yes.
Another World? And some people say no, it isn't. Some people say it is. So I'm like, is it really? I mean, it's very similar. Like the design, the way the character moves, it looks like the same character as well, doesn't it? Except
Yeah,
he wears a hat.
I'm sure it's. I mean, I never completed Another World, so I don't know how that ended. But well, you put doubt in my mind now, but I'm pretty sure it's a sequel. Uh, but I
He
didn't
flies
enjoy it
off
as
in the
much.
end.
Oh, does
Yeah.
he?
Well, yeah,
Spoilers.
yeah. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! You fly off on a massive dragon. I'm pretty sure
Oh.
that's the end.
I mean, I
I'll have
got
to
quite
play it.
far in it. I got far in it, but I got to the bit where you're captured and you have to escape with your alien mate, and it's sort
Yeah.
of running around a mazy type bit there. But from what I never really got into Flashback because it turned it more into a jumping platform game, which
Yeah.
it was more geared towards consoles at that point. I think. I
Yeah. I
wouldn't
mean,
say that's the top Amiga game though. I mean, to me, that's got to be
Another
Secret of
World.
Monkey Island. Yeah, Another
Do you
World's
think?
not. Secret of Monkey Island was revolutionary at the time.
Really? I mean,
Yeah.
I see. I haven't actually played that, so I'm gonna have to. That's in my next task.
Yeah,
I'll,
it's available quite a lot of areas, but it's the
yeah.
point and click adventure games.
Oh, you see, I'm not really into point and click.
Oh, I used to
But
love all of those. There were some classics back in the day: Secret of Monkey Island, um, King's Quest, Heroes Quest games. So you want to be a hero,
uh
Police Quest, loads of clicky point and click ones.
I
Beneath
did.
the Steel Sky, Day of the Tentacle,
Oh, see, they all sound awesome. The titles sound brilliant.
Full Throttle, Sam and Max Hit the Road. Awesome games.
Ah, yeah. Right, write a list, and I'll play them all.
Oh, and as well, they should have made this the plot to the Indiana Jones film that they made, but you had Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. That was one of
Hmm.
the best point and click adventures. The plot was really good. It was basically searching for Atlantis. It would have made a really good movie script, but instead they went for the Crystal Skull thing.
Uh, and these are all Amiga games or games on the
And
Amiga.
PC, yeah, they were on
All right.
Amiga PC. Well, you're talking about like that the 90s, whatever computer was in the 90s, because I think by the start of the 90s, all those other different computers started to just die out, and it then just got taken over by Mac or PC. There was so much choice, and loads of people had different computers all at school. So you'd have
Yeah.
arguments in school about which computer was the best. I used to keep my mouth shut because all I had was an Acorn Electron, whilst they were arguing about Spectrums and Commodore 64s. And then when I
Yeah.
got a Commodore 64 at last, they were arguing about the Amiga or Atari ST. I can't keep up.
Well, what was when I
Now
was
look at me. I've got everything.
several TV screens on just playing different games from different consoles all at the same time.
Yep. I'd like
Oh,
to introduce my 12-year-old self to my room now that I'm sitting in it. It'd be like
Whoa.
unbelievable.
Well, my mate had he had a PC, and I don't think any of my other mates had a PC. And I remember going to his house, and I was intrigued by it because he brought up a browser, which I don't know what kind of browser it was. What was it back then?
It would have
Um,
been Explorer.
yeah, probably just whatever that came with Microsoft.
Oh,
And
yeah, well, it would have been Windows 3.1 probably.
yeah,
And then, well, I don't know if you were using browsers, you probably started to get into Windows 95
oh, it could have been. Yeah, actually,
with
that
the
makes sense. Probably around then.
green background. That would have been when I first got on the internet. It was Windows 95.
Yeah. Well, I remember looking at it right, and I was like, "So, what do you do?" You know, like
Yeah.
I'm just kind of looking at it thinking, does it? I don't know. Does it like do you play games on it or something? I don't know. And he's like, "Oh, you just type in here." So he typed in the URL field, and he's like, and I'm like, right, okay. So how do you? What, I don't get it. How do you find stuff? Like, because then I was like, oh, can you find a Pantera website of Pantera images? And I started becoming obsessed with like, oh, you can get images off the internet. This is awesome. And
And then we have the boom of the porn industry at that point.
yeah,
That was your next
you,
logical step.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like it, doesn't it? Yeah, images, porn.
Yeah. Ooh. You would have been, I'd see what you mean, like your search engine back then. It wouldn't have been Google. You would have had like
No,
the old search engines. It wouldn't have been Google. It would have been Ask Jeeves, Bing, Yahoo.
yeah, yeah. You see, when it wasn't for another 5 years that I started to actually use the internet properly, as in I had a Yahoo email account and things.
Yeah, that's my first email account. I've still got that same email account from
Yeah,
Yahoo, but it's got a stupid name on it because I was a lot younger then, and I didn't think that I might want to give that email out to people.
true, true. Most
So
of
I
my
thought
emails are
geeky
stupid. But you see, but even around that time though, like
Steve doesn't
yeah, that's it.
come much
Steve,
sillier. Yeah,
who actually I would quite like that, wouldn't it? Like just your first name, email address, your first starts with your first name. That'd be easy. You got to make up all kinds of stuff now, don't you?
there's going to be quite a lot of Steves in the world though, so that wouldn't really
Yeah.
work.
Steve at yahoo.co.uk.
Well, let's try it and see if you get a response.
Okay. Are you a Steve too?
Oh my
Hi,
God, we
Steve.
must be
I'm Steve.
related. And then in some weird twist, you find out that it's actually yourself from like the future that you've been emailing through
Oh,
like some kind
imagine.
of temporal rift.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's not telling you the lottery numbers.
Damn you.
Even you're getting annoyed with a fictional future version of yourself. He's telling you like, God, I remember when I was like 20 years when I was you, the games were really rubbish, weren't they? You used to have to use like controllers and stuff. Now you just use the power of your mind.
It doesn't need to give us the lottery numbers because in the future you own nothing and you're
Yeah,
happy.
yeah. So we're like Star Trek Federation now. No one has any possessions or money or anything.
Yeah,
Like, what?
don't need
It's
it.
free.
Ah, well, you know what though? It was like during the 90s. It was that was when I first got an Atari, and I was behind everyone else. I was like you, I was way behind.
Like in the 90s. When
Yeah,
you say an Atari, what Atari are you
S.
talking about?
Ah,
Console? Are you talking about the consoles?
yes, the console. Yeah.
No, that was like God. You were behind then because I was going to say because I doubt you'd have had the ST was relatively new in the 90s. I think.
Oh, was it?
Well, you had the Atari. The first one would have been Atari 2600. Then I think you had the Atari 7800 or the Atari 800. Then the Atari 7800.
Well, here, look, I've got it. I've got it in this room somewhere. Hold on a minute.
It
I'll
might
tell
be
you.
if it's the sleek black looking one. That was the last Atari one
Yes.
they made. And
Here
I'm
we
gonna
go.
think it's the XL or something.
It's the, I'm getting it out now. It's the Atari 2600.
Oh, the 2600.
Yes.
That oh my god, that was old. But is it the black Is it the sleek black version?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I was talking about before. Like before this version, I think it was just like a wooden style.
Yeah, I think that must be a re-release, like later on, mid 80s. I would have thought. We'll have to look into
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Because I had a feeling that you had something like the 7800, which would be like the better one, but no, that was proper shit still.
Yeah. Yeah. But to me, it was awesome. I had games like River Raid, and I had Dig Dug, but I'd already played Dig Dug like probably 8 years before or 6 years
Yeah.
before. Yeah. Can you remember Pole Position?
Yes, that was just a
And
straight track. It didn't have
yeah.
any. Yeah.
And actually, you're talking about flashback. There was a game called Pitfall.
Oh
Where
yeah,
you,
yeah. That's like one of the classics from that system.
yeah.
It's
When
like
I
an
think of
Indiana Jones kind of.
yeah, yeah,
Well, that's what the idea was, but it didn't look anything like that. Well, no, it wasn't
no,
bad graphics. You swung over pits and
yeah,
crocodiles.
yeah. Looking back on that though, that kind of reminds us of Flashback, except Flashback is way better.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it,
Kind of,
or another
maybe it's just the
world, more of
colors.
another world. Yeah, yeah, because you had to jump over the stuff, then you had to swing over that and press the button. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the same gameplay as another world. Oh my god,
yeah.
mind blown! Another world is just basically a rehash of Pitfall.
Or maybe another world was more original, but when they brought Flashback out, they went, "Oh no, we could make another world in the style of Pitfall."
Oh
Yes,
yeah. Mm.
and
But
they thought that's a great idea. They'll never know.
I mean, I'm shocked that you had that in the 90s. That was your gaming. I thought I was
Yeah,
behind.
yeah,
I mean, mind you, you had a console. I didn't know anyone that really had consoles back then in the 80s, early 90s.
yeah,
Most people, me and my mates, that we had like, it would have been Spectrums, Commodore. I
yeah.
remember having arguments with someone over what was better, the Commodore 64 or the Spectrum. Um, I mean, yes, he
uh,
had a Spectrum with 128K and I was limited to 64K, but I had hardware sprite capability and a SID sound chip in it, where the Spectrum
what?
would have software sprites.
And there's
And it
me.
didn't have it had less of a colour palette. And there's you playing Pitfall. Oh
Yeah.
my god, I would have so taken the piss out of you at school for that.
Ah. Well, you see, all my mates are in the same position though.
But there was it was still seen as a bit geek if you played computer games back then.
Yeah,
It wasn't as cool as if you say I like playing computer games. Everyone's like, oh yeah, cool. Where back
yeah,
then you'd get laughed at a lot and thought it was
yeah.
being a bit sad.
Well, even back then, I remember Super Breakout, which was you had I had a controller with which was just a sort of a round knob that you turned left and right, and Super Breakout was the little you got the
It's
kind of platform at the
uh,
bottom moving left and right,
yeah, it's
and you have to
Arkanoid.
bounce. Yeah, and even then, I thought that was rubbish, but I still played it.
All those games I knew were rubbish, but I had nothing else. So it's
Yeah,
like it is
exactly.
what it is.
Did you play Raiders of the Lost Ark on the Atari?
No, but I remember I didn't know there was a Raiders of the Lost Ark. I remember they did a Temple of Doom.
Well, so Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then if you put that alongside ET, which
Yeah,
was the worst game,
yeah.
um, Raiders of the Lost Ark is really similar. So
Oh,
I
really?
wonder,
Oh,
yeah,
I've probably got it on an emulator somewhere. I'll have to look at it. But
yeah,
it's interesting you say about ET. That was apparently the reason of the great game crash back in the 80s
yeah.
because it cost them so much to produce and it was so bad that they couldn't sell them or anything. So they had to bury a load of them in the desert. And and that is actually true because they dug a load of these cartridges up quite recently. But it
Really,
led to the great collapse of the games industry for that period. So a lot of big gaming labels collapsed.
one
I mean,
game, and
I've
it's
played
like,
it. Yeah, I've played it, and it's bad.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then
it is.
the thing is, I don't know. You say, "Oh, it's bad," but I'm like, every game that you play on that console, if you have an emulator now, it's all rubbish. And I
No,
don't.
no,
That's
no,
just
no.
another. That's just like another rubbish game. I
No,
don't
because
see.
like if you play River Raid, for example, right? River Raid, I loved River Raid, and I got it on emulator on my mobile as well. And my son played it and he liked it, and even I like it now. It's still quite hard as well.
I'm
So
trying to
that
think
is,
what one River Raid was. Is it like a
it's.
Frogger or something?
I was going to say similar, but no, it's not really. You're an aircraft, and the screen continues to scroll down, so you're moving around, and you have to refuel and not bump into boats or airplanes, and
Oh, so it's
you've
kind
got to
of like a. It's like
stay within the river.
so it's a look down helicoptery or
Yes,
game, and you fly. Right, I got you.
yeah, and it's really good. Favorite game on the Atari, brilliant.
I mean, I suppose I can see why maybe ET, if you compare it to like with ET, you walk around and you keep falling down holes, and
Yeah,
then to get out of that, you stretch your neck and float out, and it's like, what are
yeah,
you even doing it? Or at least
and
that
then you get
you're in a fight and you're fighting like planes and things and
yeah,
going down a river, and you've got your
yeah.
imagination telling you it's better than.
Exactly, and the river splits into two, and it becomes narrower in places, so it can become quite difficult.
Yeah,
But ET, I mean, the whole game is just a maze, I think. But
yeah, just
it's
yeah. It
a
doesn't. I
maze that
played it.
is
It doesn't make sense. It's weird.
no, no, and then you start getting chased by uh, whoever it is,
The government.
the government, yeah, and then that just makes it even harder. Maybe it's intentionally. It's supposed to be a hard game. Maybe it made sense when they were making it. Like, yeah, well, they mapped out this huge maze, and they were like, each screen is a block of this maze. So if you go left instead of down, then you hit a wall and you fall down. You know, they probably had this whole great idea, but pulling it off just
I
didn't work, did it?
no, I think what happened, and you'll have to just Wikipedia this. I think there were the ET films coming out. We want this cartridge done by Christmas for the Christmas release, and it's
Yeah,
like, well, it gives me like 6 weeks to come up with a game from scratch. Do it, and I think he just, well, he did what he could. I think it was one programmer working on his own with a deadline of like a month to get a
yeah,
full game out. And it didn't matter how bad it was. They thought it's got ET's name on it, it's got ET's picture on it because we've got the license. People will buy it.
yeah.
But yeah, and then he's just brought that out and it was rubbish. It's not really his fault. It's like, well, what can I do?
Total crap. Let's
Interesting.
bury it all. Bury
Yeah,
it all
but
in the desert.
yeah, just I never talk about that again. But interesting, they never used to give credit to, particularly 2600. They never gave credit to the programmers, um, so they wouldn't get any credit for the games they produced, which led to. Did you have the game Adventure on the 2600?
No.
It's actually quite. It's not a bad little game. It's a bit rubbishy looking, but anyway, it had the first ever Easter egg in a game. So I don't know how anyone would have found it, but you meant to pick up a certain dot, and with that dot, if you went left, right, and into some other screen through an invisible dark room with that specific key in that order, then
Ah,
it revealed the game creator's name within it. And I
it's
remember that someone wrote into Atari saying, "Oh, I found this hidden screen," and the Atari didn't know he'd done that. So, and then it led to more people hiding secret things within games.
it's similar to Wonder Boy in a way, except a lot more basic.
There wasn't Wonder Boy the one where you're on a skateboard or something, and it's a scrolly platform.
No, Wonder Boy is the it's a you're a little sort of knight, I suppose. You're on an adventure to save a princess.
Oh, there must be. I remember an old platformy game called Wonder Boy, and it was on a
Yeah.
skateboard. Maybe you're. I don't remember that on the Atari though. But yeah,
Maybe
well, this you are a quest, but you've got to like get keys to get some cup, a special chalice or something. So you'd have to like you're a little dot on the screen that moved around a maze, and then
yeah.
there'd be a dragon that would chase you, and you could kill him if you had the arrow. Um, I mean, again, you look at the box art, and you've got like a big dragon and a knight going at him with a sword. It doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah, so you're talking about the game Wonder Boy Skateboard, whereas I'm talking about um yeah, I mean I think that's a more modern game. I'm not really sure what.
Wonder Boy, I remember having that on the Commodore 64, so that would have been maybe 90s.
Maybe they're just made by the same company.
But maybe it's just they thought, oh, this is a cool sounding name. We'll just reuse it.
Yeah. Actually, you can get the Wonder Boy collection for the PlayStation.
Oh,
That'll be good. Maybe that includes Wonder Boy skateboard as well.
I'm confused about Wonder Boy now.
Yeah. But
Um,
Wonder Boy's a good game. That's why Tenacious D sang a song called Wonder Boy.
it is a popular name.
Wonder Boy based on the game Wonder Boy, not Wonder Boy skateboard.
Yeah, I don't even think Wonder Boy Skateboard was a particularly great game. But I don't know. Did you have a game back then that you played for a long time, like just a game you kept going back to all the time,
Do you mean for the Atari or
or any game that you would
any?
just play religiously?
Well, yeah. I mean, we after the Atari, we got Sega Master System, and I loved. There was Snail Maze is a hidden game on the Master System,
Mm.
and so you would I don't know upright left down or something before the title came up, and you would be able to play the Snail Maze, and
Oh.
that was excellent. And it was just like 10 levels, and it was just a fun game, and yeah, managed to complete all 10 levels, and it had a
You
really catchy tune as well. Do 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 do.
yeah, I get that's the thing with old games. They were so repetitive, the music,
Yeah,
that I can still, if you name a game, I'll tell you that I can whistle the tune to it.
yeah, yeah,
Bubble
and
bobble. Ding 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 ding. Yes,
and
and it would repeat over and
yeah,
over again.
yeah. But then they started getting advanced, right? So if you look at newer games, I don't know if you played Resident Evil, name the theme tune for Resident Evil. You're like, I don't know. But if you go,
Got a
think
theme
about
tune.
Sonic the Hedgehog or something like that. I might not be able to actually do all the tunes, but you kind of remember they're actually really good tunes. Sonic the
Do
Hedgehog.
do 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 do
Yeah,
do
yeah.
do do.
That was Green Hill Zone, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Do 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 do. Yeah, that's stuck in my head now.
But they're also Double Dragon. Love Double
Do
Dragon.
do 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 do. Yeah. I
That
still
sounded
remember the
like
tune to that.
the A Team.
Yeah.
Maybe we've just discovered.
It does sound a bit A-teamy.
Yeah.
I used to play. My brothers once were talking about this new arcade game where, oh my god, you can literally like pick up baseball bats and
Oh
hit
yes.
people with and then use their weapons. I was like, whoa, I've got to play this game. And I
Yeah.
remember like being blown away by that in the arcade. I was like, whoa, I
Yeah.
can pick their bat up.
You know what? And then loads of other games came out that were almost like if you went down to the arcades, there would be loads of games exactly the same. Pick stuff up and battered people. They were like 5p a time or 10p a time or something. Now it's like
Oh yeah.
50p, a quid, a pound for like a 30-minute play, if that.
I think
Shocking.
like the days of the arcade games are over. Now it's like, well, I've just got a better
Yeah.
game on my console now.
Yeah.
They can't get
Exactly.
me. I mean, I
Yeah.
used to
Exactly.
like if I got my pocket money, I'd run off down the arcades, and I'd only get a couple of games, and because it was like 20p or something for a game of something.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, my favorite arcade game, I used to play Star Wars, the arcade game, a lot. It was the old 3D green vector graphic game. I loved that. It had samples from the films and everything in it. I don't know if you ever played that one, did you?
No, never played it. I didn't even watch Star Wars. I didn't know it was a thing until I was like in my 20s.
OMG.
Yeah.
I was into
But,
Star Wars before I even saw the movies because my
oh,
brothers who were older had like the Star Wars figures, and then I kind of inherited it from them. So I
yeah.
was like, I knew all the characters before I'd even seen the film. I don't even remember when I first saw Star Wars. It's like one of those things it's just always existed.
You see, while you were into Star Wars, I was like still into Thundercats and He-Man.
Oh, I liked all of that. They were all classics. But so I used to play Outrun a lot. I don't know if you remember Outrun
Outrun. Yes.
with the
Um,
greatest soundtrack of any game. Uh, In fact, it was so good when you bought the computer version of it. It came with a audio cassette tape of the soundtrack.
Yeah, I actually got good at Outrun, and but the courses were kind of dead. The courses weren't difficult either, were they? Really?
No, it was just
It
twisty
just
turny tracks.
yeah, but it just kept the actual game though kept you focused, didn't it? Even
Because you had
the
the time
because
limit. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
that was for the Sega though. That was for the that might have been for the I might have played that on the Mega Drive. I think
it
maybe.
was on. Yeah, maybe you did. It was on every single console and computer at the
Oh,
time.
okay.
Because they used to do like most classic arcade games we'll talk about. I've played on like the computer conversion of it. It was never as good as the real version of it, but it was cheaper than spending like 20p a pop on a game. So
Well,
R-Type was another classic that was so frustratingly hard.
I remember this for some reason.
It was like a shoot 'em up, sideways scrolling shoot 'em up.
Yes, I didn't have this, but my mate did. But yeah, probably wasn't that one of the first games that were, I'd say like really complicated. There was a lot going on while you were shooting.
Yes, it was a frustratingly difficult game.
Mm.
I think I only ever got up to the spaceship level, but I could never. I think I was like the fourth level. But I was on a limited budget at the time in the arcade. So once that like 50 pence was gone, it was gone. I couldn't play it anymore. So
Yeah,
when it came out on the computer, I was like, yes. And the Commodore 64 had a good version of it as well.
some of my mates had a Mega Drive before I even had an Atari, right? And then,
Oh, you are being envious of that.
uh, yeah, I mean, you go around one mate's house and they've got I remember playing Sonic the Hedgehog, and I was just, this is awesome, even though this was before I'd even played it on the Master System.
Yeah,
And then, and then, yeah, the Mega Drive was good. Like I think you had Alex Kidd. It was
yeah.
a free. I think that came with it. It was a free game that was actually built into the console.
I didn't think the
Um,
console had any built-in games.
or maybe.
Alex
I
Kidd
mean,
was a console. That was a cartridge game. I remember that.
yeah. And then I remember playing Altered Beast. That was a good.
Yeah,
I felt like
yeah.
that was a good one too.
You turned into a beast or something now and
Yeah,
again. Yeah, I vaguely remember it. Golden Axe. That was a
Golden
classic.
Axe. Ah, yes, I forgot about that. I really love Golden Axe.
And again,
I
you could
got
pick up weapons and ride little dragons in that, couldn't you?
yeah. I even got to the. I can't remember ever completing it, but I got to the boss, the very last boss, quite a few times, but never completed it. But this was the problem. Well, I don't know if this was the problem or part of the just the whole thing of keeping you interested in the games. But you couldn't save it anywhere, could you? So you'd have to complete the whole thing. It was just really hard to complete things back in the day, wasn't it? Yeah, you just had to do it until you finished, and if you died halfway, that was it, over.
You were lucky if you had like a password for each level that you could enter to take you back to it.
Mm.
But it's funny you should say that about completing games. I used to play Jet Set Willy quite a lot.
Yeah,
Um, it was like Manic Mansion. No, was it Manic? What was it? Manic Miner. It was a sequel to that, and basically you played this little guy that he was basically has a mansion, and he can't go back to bed because his wife won't let him until he's tidied up everything. So you had to explore this giant mansion, jumping over weird monsters. But I spent hours playing it and playing it and playing it. It's only now that you look back that it was never anything you could complete because they purposely left bugs in old computer games so you could never complete them. So that
ah,
you thought, yeah, just get good at it. And by the time you like gave up, you'd never think anything more of it. So look at the replay value you had on this game.
so you would
Um,
go around each screen, and you would just probably never reach the end. Is that how it
yeah,
worked?
yeah, there was some bug in it. I think what happened is if you walked onto one room, you literally fell straight off the ledge, and it would just have you falling down this ledge and dying over and over again. So I think it was like
Ah,
you'd never get around it. But I
yeah,
used to map that whole mansion out, and I'd like it was a crazy big mansion.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, those were the days. But that was when games were actually, if you remember that some of the games and the premises of some of the games were completely lame. Like if you remember Paperboy. So your object
yeah.
of this game is you've got to ride your bike down the street, delivering papers to
Up.
houses whilst avoiding like obstacles on the road. I'm like, that is lame.
Yeah, me and my brother used to play paperboy. Used to really
Everyone
enjoy
did.
it for some reason. But it was also the same. I don't know if you ever played California Games. That was a
Yes, that was a tapping the keyboard one, wasn't it?
uh well, we had it on the Atari, so you could be I think you had a roller skater and you could be a surfer, and it was just basically all the competition you set in California, obviously, but different competitions. But it didn't come with actual instructions for how you did anything. So with the if you were surfing, you had to ride the wave and you could do tricks, right? But what they never told you was this is something that we through trial and error worked out that you could jump off the top of the wave at a certain angle, but you had to hit the wave at the same angle or the opposite angle, if that makes sense. Jump off the
Yeah.
wave at a 45-degree angle, hit the wave at a 45-degree angle. Um, and if you didn't, then you would just fall off. Do you know what I mean? So and I think that's what a lot of the games were like back then. They did come with booklets, and you could read how to play things. But I'm pretty sure California Games didn't actually tell you how to play different each competition within the
See,
game.
I didn't really like the sport games because they used to break your keyboard or your joystick. So I
Because you
think
had to
that
press
it used
everything
to
really
be
hard.
no, you used to if you were in the running event, you'd be tapping
Yeah,
tapping. The faster you
yeah.
tap the keys, the faster you'd run. So it's knackering in itself, but it would also knacker your keyboard out as well.
Yeah.
I remember the Daly Thompson's decathlon. You'd tap 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 on the high jump. You tap 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 space bar at the right time to jump over the obstacle. Then tap 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 tap, and you'd like this little animation would be slowly running, and you'd be like tapping away, banging away furiously. Actually, that sounds wrong, but it was just like I mean, I would never buy a game like that now. But there was
No.
another game in the spectrum that you'd play a lot of. It was called. I always mention this one because I just think that game. Why would any kid be interested in buying that game? But they did. It was called Hover Bovver, and what happened is
Oh.
you borrowed your neighbour's lawnmower, and you had to mow your lawn whilst avoiding the dog and your neighbour who wanted his lawnmower back.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. But what if you think about it, like that, those kinds of games were probably more exciting than things like Space Invaders, or kind of they were newer in a way, probably
I
because there was more of a theme around. I can't even. There was probably more of a. I don't know. It was probably more active than Space Invaders.
He had a lot going on, but I have this theory about how games were addictive and why people played them back then because it was all to do, I think, with dopamine levels. So that
Uh-huh.
I've got the next level, I've got the next highest score, and it gives you
Yeah.
that reward system. And I think,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to get to the next level, even though the game was rubbish, but it played on that whole, oh, I'll just get to level 10. I'll just see if I can beat that score. And
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
the way it used to work. So that people, rather than now you play a game to get further in the story or further in like explore there. Where back then it was about get the high score, get the next level.
But if you see, you remember us playing the Division,
Yeah.
and I'm the kind of guy who hunts for all of the little recordings and things, aren't I? So
Oh
for
yeah.
me, yeah. So for me, I'm still in that mode of like, oh, I'll collect all this because I'm like, yes, I found it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you
little
see, I
hits.
don't I'm not really into the collecting every little item around the world to collect, trophy collecting. I don't
Yeah, well,
I like exploring and finding what's gonna happen next.
yeah, but you say on the PlayStation, I love to see. I look through my games list, and most of them are like 0%, 1% because I've only played a little bit. And yeah, and I've got a couple that are 100%. I'm like, yes, I got a platinum trophy. Get in.
Ooh.
Woohoo! Means nothing, does it? But
Yeah, it does. It means you're worth a platinum trophy.
thank you. I feel really good about myself.
But talking about the PlayStation, I remember I was on the Amiga a lot, and then I got a PC, and then I got a PC with a CD in it, and then I discovered like the PlayStation 1, and that was like, wow, this is so awesome. And I think I just converted to consoles since then.
Well, this is the thing, right? So I went from probably Mega Drive and then not playing anything, and obviously just using a PC for years. Apart from my brother had a Game Boy, which is literally all we ever played was Tetris. That was it.
Oh,
I'm
I had a Game Boy as well. It was the first handheld that I had. But the thing is, because the games were like 20 quid a pop, and I couldn't afford that as a kid on a paper round money. Because I couldn't afford that on my salary as a kid on the paper round. I've got a family to support. I had 3 games on that Game Boy: Tetris, because it came with it, Double Dragon, and the Amazing Spider-Man, which was rubbish.
Oh, I didn't know you could get Double Dragon with the
Oh,
game.
it was a brilliant conversion of it. It had the music and everything. It was spot on.
See, for me, I missed out the PlayStation 1, and it wasn't until PlayStation 2 that I got that, and I thought, oh, this is awesome. And then I started playing like Silent Hill and Resident Evil and stuff like that. And then, I mean, that was the point where games completely changed. But I'd probably missed out a whole sort of several years of gaming to build up to that.
Yeah, you see, I had the PlayStation 1, and then I think we got the PlayStation 2, but then I think I started to get back into PC gaming. So I didn't
Yeah.
really have a lot on the PlayStation 2. And then I think we got a Wii, and then the Wii was pretty lame. But then when the PlayStation 3 came out, I got back into the console gaming again. Interestingly enough, I've got loads of old games in that. I've just dragged a cassette tape game for the Acorn Electron called Bone Cruncher. We're talking about lame ideas for games. This is from the back. You are Bono, or Bono, a friendly dragon residing in a picturesque sea castle. As a shrewd business dragon keen on a nice little earner, you make your living by selling soap to giant monsters who bathe in the sea surrounding the castle. With the aid of your business partner named Fozzie, you produce soap by collecting skeletons among the castle caverns and then boiling the bones in a cauldron. However, the castle caverns are fraught with danger. There are monsters who kill you, spiders who will eat you alive, and glooks that will block your path. It will pay you dividends to also avoid the perilous trapdoors and hidden volcanoes.
Oh,
Like,
you see,
basically, you've got to make soap for monsters that bathe in the sea around the castle.
but
I'm
you see,
like,
by the end,
what?
by the end of that paragraph, I've forgotten about that lame idea because they're talking about volcanoes and stuff. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, like,
let's.
you've got to make soap, but there's volcanoes hidden in the castle. Why would you hide a volcano in a castle? I mean, I remember playing that, and it was like, "Oh, this is so cool." But you're like, "Oh God!" I just think there's nothing. There was nothing else better at the time, and I do think though that when like computers evolved, the late games started to subside a bit because they used to just. Yeah, I think it was people in their bedrooms programming up games and releasing them, and people
Yeah,
would buy those games. So they'd just put in another game. Right, I'll do this. I'll do that, and they're just coming up with stupid ideas.
it's a bit like the Play Store now, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
filled
pretty
with
much.
games that are like, that's rubbish. That's rubbish.
Yeah, we've got spoilt on games, and I'm playing a
Yeah.
game called Ghost of Tsushima at the moment, which is
Yes.
awesome. Like proper samurai game. It's like playing a movie. Just it's hard to go back to retro gaming now
Oh yeah.
when you see games like that. But there we
Yeah.
are.
I think you've got to, when you do. I mean, I do every so often. I've got a little joypad for me phone. And when I do go back to like River Raid and stuff like that, I just got to enjoy for what it is rather than, you know, I know what the games are anyway, and I can't compare them to what there is available now because
Yeah,
the games now are just, yeah, you're right. They're like movies. In fact, they're better than
epic
movies
movies.
because you're
Yeah,
playing them. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but if you think about this in a timescale perspective, 10 years ago had the PlayStation 3. Yeah, about 10 years
yeah,
ago. Now, if you were in 1990 and the computers have started to get a lot better, 10 years ago, you had the PlayStation 3. And if you were, say, you look at 1990, go back 10 years from there, you're talking 1980, and
yeah,
how different the games would have been. In 1980 would have been Pong and really basic games. And that
yeah.
was like, so you go back, I think that the games are slowing down in what they can do now because I still think PlayStation 3 games are still playable and pretty good.
I think you're right. Mind you, I mean, I do still see a big difference between the PS3 and the PS4 when I'm playing the games. And
But it's not,
that's to do with smoothness, isn't it? And how
yeah,
controllers are more responsive. So yeah, I think it's really we're really refining the gameplay now,
but
I
it's nothing
suppose.
changing that drastically, because you're not going back 10 years to where it was just dots on the screen.
No.
You're just going back with slightly better. You're improving the graphics, but the games are similar. But I suppose you've got virtual reality now. I mean, I find it hard to go back to flat screen gaming when you've had virtual reality.
So true.
Yeah, this brings back so many memories. But if you had to name, say, your top 5 favorite old games, what would they be?
Okay, I'm going to start with the older ones and work through. So I think River Raid. It's got to be. Oh, this is hard. Yeah, River Raid, Another World. I'm not going to say it came from the desert because I didn't play that enough. But Sonic the Hedgehog, Double Dragon, and I'm going to go with Golden Axe.
Not bad. I think that's 5. I lost count. I can't count.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm surprised you put River Raid in there then, because that is a very basic game.
It's just excellent. Every time I play it, I'm like, this is just a good game.
And you put Golden Axe in your top 5 as well.
Yeah. You mentioned that, and I'd forgotten about it, but great memories from Golden Axe.
That is the game where you've got to run around kicking the dwarf to make him drop bottles of potion for you.
Yeah. If you can catch him.
I feel like playing that one now. Okay, top 5. Let me have a think about this, because I'm going through various different consoles and computers. Secret of Monkey Island. I love the point and click adventures. I'm going to go back to an old text adventure that I used to play all the time. It was called Bedlam. You had to escape from like a mental asylum, and the patients have basically taken over. It was like old text based, so that's 2. God, I'm going to start struggling now, aren't I? Oh, help me out here. There's too many. Oh, Elite. Played the hell out of Elite. It was a 3D space battle game. It was revolutionary at the time. I played that for years on various different computers, so that's definitely up there. I still play it now. It's on VR. There's like a virtual reality version of the game now called Elite Dangerous. Well worth checking out. I can't say Tomb Raider because that's a little bit too modern, isn't it? What did I used to play that? Oh, Outrun. I used to play that an awful lot. And I'm going to say I used to be into the old flight simulator games. And I would say out of those, probably a game called Project Stealth Fighter I used to play a lot as well. It's like a 3D flight game where you had to go on flight missions and things. But it's really hard trying to pick your top 5, actually. I'm like, suddenly my brain went blank. What did I used to play a lot of when I was younger? And then, like, because a lot of my memories are going to be like, there's a lot on PlayStation 1 I could name as being like, oh, that was awesome.
I see those, though. I don't see those as retro games anymore. Not yet, anyway.
Technically.
But they are, yeah, technically they are. Yeah, you're right.
PlayStation 1 is 90s.
Yeah.
That's like 25 years ago plus.
I know. And the PlayStation for me, the PlayStation for me seems like a really modern thing. Even it's been around for years, but it feels like it's the modern era of gaming.
I mean, that's the thing. You're talking about the PlayStation 1 was 30 years ago. And if you go back to the year 2000, when you had started to get the PlayStation 2 out, go back 30 years from 2000, that takes you to 1970, before there were home computers.
Oh my God.
You're old, officially old.
Yeah.
Put things into perspective. But I always notice this with TV stuff as well, right? So gaming now, all they're doing is tweaking and improving the graphics. They're still that sort of level of quality for a good 15 odd years.
Yeah.
Now, if you go and look at, say, for example, the difference between watching, I'll use Doctor Who as an analogy for this. You watch 1963 Doctor Who, and then when you look at 10 years from there, you go to 1973, you've got, not only is it everything in colour, but everything is quite a lot different. But now, if you go back 10 years to TV now, it's not really that different looking, is it? Production values aren't that different.
Yeah.
It's like everything's stagnating, but just improving slightly. There's nothing revolutionary like you had.
Yeah.
Like production values of TV, effects got all better, and even in the
Yeah.
cinema now, there's nothing really amazing coming out cinema-wise with effects or anything like that.
No, you're right. I think they've gaming has tweaked to a point where it's as close to real life as it could be, especially you know, your games like the Division and stuff, the like, and how responsive the controls are and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's and now they're heading into like actually placing you physically inside the game, so it feels more like you're there. I think that's the next level, isn't it?
Then holodecks.
Yeah.
Which never makes any sense how the holodecks work anyway, but there we are. That's
Yeah.
another Star Trek discussion.
Well, that's it from us.
Yeah, it's been a fun trip down memory lane. I might dig out a little bit of my old emulated games and have a little play on that.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm
you
going to as
play
well.
It Came from the Desert.
Yes. In fact, I'm going to do that today because I've got the emulator on my phone and I've got a load of files that I can dig through, and I'm pretty sure I've got It Came from the Desert in various formats.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm going to charge me old school joypad up. Let's do it.
Yes, I'm going to go and play Outrun.
And then I got to look after the kids in between. No.
No, they can look after themselves. Gaming's more
Yeah,
important and it's more fun.
exactly.
I love
4-year-old,
games.
7-year-old. Surely they can look after themselves.
Yeah, just leave him with a bowl of water or something, can't you?
Yeah. Awesome. Nice speaking to you, Kev. This has been awesome.
Absolutely. I'll see you for the next discussion. It's going to be
Excellent.
riveting.
See you guys later.
See you later.